Hi, I'm Evan Solomon with Maclean's Magazine, alongside Maclean's Magazine Ottawa Bureau Chief John Geddes. This is your 3.5-minute rapid fire, what to look for, the paths to victory, how this is going to break, because by this time next week, we'll know who the government is, but we won't know if we're in a constitutional crisis or not. That's for another day. All right, let's just walk across what battlegrounds and paths to victory we're looking for. Atlantic Canada. For the Liberals, this should be, for them, if it's a meaningful night, the beginning of the red surge.
They must pick up, say, a dozen seats in the Atlantic provinces for it to be what they want it to be that night. So in the other case, the other parties, you're looking for them trying to hold symbolic ridings. Halifax, Megan Leslie for the NDP. I'm interested in whether Bernard Valcourt survives in New Brunswick for the Tories.
That's right. And if the polls are right, and we put a big grain of salt, a silo of salt there, but if they're right, if the Tories lose 10-ish in Atlantic Canada, they got to pick them up in Quebec. And as we move into Quebec, there's two storylines to follow there. One, can the Tories pick up 10 seats around Quebec City? And two, does Tom Mulcair hold Fortress Quebec? And I would say his baseline is 50.
50 seats. He's got 59 from the last election. He's got to hold the vast majority of those. That's a challenge now. He's fighting the Bloc in rural Quebec, the Liberals in urban ridings, especially in the island of Montreal. It's a horse race in many of those seats.
Yeah, below 50, the NDP's in trouble. Below 50, Tom Mulcair personally is in trouble.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, 121 seats in Ontario. Let's just quickly zero in on a couple of areas. The 416 and the 905 around Toronto. What are you watching for there? Because a lot of those are going to be Liberal-Conservative battles.
Liberal-Conservative battles in the 905. I think the Liberals are thinking about picking up literally dozens of seats out of them. They need to for it to be a winning night for them. They need to. They did terribly in Ontario last time, so they've got a huge ground to make up there. They might do it. The polls suggest they could. Downtown Toronto, it's interesting to see the NDP fighting defensive battles for the most part, trying to hold some of their breakthrough from 2011. And then after that, you've got the southwestern Ontario seats where Tom Mulcair has spent some time, and he's hoping to pick up some seats down there. The TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal, is a factor.
Manufacturing area there. He hopes that connects. If the Liberals can break through that 905 area, which really won the Conservatives the last election, that will be critical.
Absolutely.
Places like Brampton, big profile ridings to watch. The Ajax battle with Chris Alexander and Mark Hall, the former. That's
fun
amazing.
riding. I was in there a bit. Lots of fun.
Yeah, so there's lots of things to watch in Ontario. And as you say, if the Liberals have to climb a very steep mountain to get over 100 seats, it's got to happen on Ontario. You move across the prairies, and the Liberals and the NDP are going to pick up 1 or 2 seats here, maybe even around so-called Edmonton and Calgary, but it's not going to define the election.
No, interesting seats. Manitoba, there's a couple places the NDP thought they were rock solid where they're now being challenged by Liberals, so there'll be some very interesting races there. New ridings, urban ridings in Regina, Saskatoon, where again the NDP was counting on gains. Mulcair absolutely needs those for it to be a successful evening.
Yeah, I think Ralph Goodale might still be the only Liberal there, but maybe the NDP, they desperately want to see it, obviously, in Tommy Douglas's home. And then, of course, maybe the first time since 1979, the Joe Clark election, where BC really was definitive. BC will be definitive. If Stephen Harper wants a victory, he's got to hold some BC and grow.
Maybe pick up some BC
Maybe pick up some BC. And for Tom Mulcair and the NDP, this is where, after Quebec, this is their best hope for any growth.
It's BC where I think Tom Mulcair has to be the most worried about strategic voting, ideas settling in this last week. You've got to think that if Green or NDP voters start to watch the news, read the polls showing Trudeau in the lead, that the fear for the Tom Mulcair camp has to be that there's more thinking, well, I'd kind of like to vote Green, I'd like to vote NDP, but I'm going to vote Liberal. They somehow have to stop that in the next 6 days.
Right, and he's got vote-splitting issues as well on the island, where the NDP want to pick up outside of Gulf Saanich, where Elizabeth May will likely win her seat. There's going to be stuff there. Lower Mainland, fascinating races. There are really so many races, and this is going to come down to battleground riding by riding. It's going to be
battleground Canada really here,
That's
Evan,
right.
for the most part. And in fact, great night shaping up for election night. I'm going to sit by that screen all day.
All right. Well, listen, nobody's making any predictions until right at the end, because we're just not sure where those undecided and where those strategic voters are going to break. So by this time next week, when we're talking to you, maybe we'll have an answer for you on the government, and then we might have to talk about the C word, Constitution. But for now, let's wait. We've got 6 days.